Welcome everyone to today's podcast with Nicki Catchpolt and me, Dave Smith, and our great guest, Prasad Ramakrishnan, CIO and CISO of Freshworks. So multiple roles and hats there, and something we will get into in our discussion on the changing and evolving role of the CIO. So welcome, Prasad.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Nikki. Nice to meet both of you, and very good morning and good evening to everyone.
Awesome, awesome. Nikki, we've been treated to a diverse set of voices across so many disciplines, from enterprise collaboration, security, field service, customer experience, from technologists to lines of business leaders who really need to step up as leaders at this time in helping people navigate work, right? And so I know you do a lot of work in cloud and security, so I'm sure you're looking forward to today's discussion, especially.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that the breadth that you just highlighted is, really an understatement. And, I think we're both really privileged to have these kinds of people like Prasad be willing to dedicate their time to sharing their insights because it really is an ongoing dialogue. From my perspective, I'm an analyst who writes and researches trends in digital transformation. This includes migration to the cloud, integration of adjacent emerging technologies such as AI and edge, as well as a host of other things such as blockchain and IoT, et cetera, right? And the fundamental importance of security is really always at the forefront of my mind. And now, really, in so many others, during a time when so many organizations are shifting their operating mantras and instituting plans that extend beyond just the short term coping. So, Prasad, really, before we get into the details of where 2020 has landed us, can you give us a little bit of a background about yourself and your role as CIO as well as CISO at Freshworks?
Yeah, absolutely, Nikki. Prasad Ramakrishnan, I'm the CIO and the CISO. For the audience and for you, a little bit about Freshworks. Freshworks is we are a customer engagement and an employee engagement platform. And what do we mean by that is we have multiple products which enables our customers to deliver what is called moments of wow to their customers. So if you're using one of our service products or our support products or our sales products, the way the user of these products engage with their customers, we want to take it to a different plane than the traditional CRM tools and the traditional customer engagement tools. So that's the origin of the company, or that's the reason why the company was founded. So every single product that we have makes it easy for our end users to provide that excellent level of service to our customers. And we do that in what we call the customer continuum. So we have products which take care of marketing, sales, customer service and support, and customer success. And also on the internal, what we call the circle of life, where we take care of the internal ITSM, which is IT service management, and employee and applicant tracking. So it's a suite of products that we offer to enable our customers to be successful. So in my role, I'm the CIO and the CISO. I've been in the industry 30 plus years, worked in multiple high tech companies, and over the last 10 years or so, I've been a huge spokesperson and an evangelist of migrating from traditional big box solutions to more cloud and SaaS-based solutions. So I've been evangelizing this and deploying this in the various companies at which I've been the CIO. And Freshworks is a born in the cloud company. So it was refreshing to come on board to Freshworks. And a little bit of an inside story. I used to be a customer of Freshworks before I joined them. I was a customer of Freshworks at two prior companies before I came and joined Freshworks. So I liked it so much. I said I want to now come on the inside.
But that's a pretty ringing endorsement. Always great to hear. If you're a customer and you want to work for them, then they must be doing something right. Given the foundational kind of mission statement of what Freshworks does, and then kind of fast forwarding to where we are today, how has the current environment, and I know this is a very high level blanketed question, but what are some like key themes or things that you've seen in terms of challenges for enabling collaboration for remote teams, as well as how you guys have had to pivot and to meet those challenges and serve your customers in a shorter time frame than anyone ever expected?
Yeah. And that's a great question, Nikki. And the way I would describe it is pretty much every company in the planet has some form of a BCP plan. Um, and if you look at it, most people would have had a BCP plan for the sake of having a BCP plan. Nobody ever thought that they're going to have to exercise their BCP. Um, but what happened was, come February, when this kind of exploded from being localized to one place and it became a global pandemic, everybody now had to react to this latest situation, right? In the case of Freshworks, we also had a BCP plan, and being a high tech company offering cloud based services, uh, we do actually exercise our BCP multiple times. The reason being, we do move customers from location to location. And if you look at the last 8 to 10 years, there have been a couple of major disasters that have happened. There has been a flood. Most of our operations happens out of Chennai, India. There was a major flood just 4 or 5 years back, where pretty much the entire office, the entire location where our office is situated, was completely flooded. The whole city was flooded, but our business still continued. So we have had occasions where we have tried out and implemented our BCP plan. But the point you're trying to make in terms of the whole adapting to this new world and adapting to this BCP situation, for most companies was a surprise, and people had to scramble and start implementing it. So let me talk about how we went about doing it, right? So um, even though most countries and most states and most cities started doing kind of a forced work from home and stay at home orders starting from, say, the 13th or the 20th of March. In our case, we actually started our planning back in February itself. So we actually got a 3 4 week head start. When we saw how the propagation of the virus was going from one country to multiple countries, the management team, we got together and said, you know what, we don't want to be caught surprised here. Let's activate our BCP. So we did it back in February itself. And then what we did is we moved into what we called as a optional work from home, which is where we said, let's test out the waters just to make sure that our BCP is working. Being a born in the cloud company, pretty much all the tools that we use for our employees is completely SaaS based. So I don't have anything that's running in my corporate data center, except I have a switch which enables me to get access to the internet. So pretty much if you have a computing device and have a very good reliable internet, you will be able to access the various services that you need to access. So what we did is, just to test out the waters, we did an optional work from home in a few of our locations. That gave us a few extra data points in terms of seeing what are the extra tweaks that we need to make to our BCP plan. And we went ahead and made that, and then made it into a mandatory work from home. And we did that even 1 week or 1.5 weeks or 2 weeks before many of the states did it. So pretty much from the first week of March, we have been in a work from home mode. We operate out of 10 to 12 different countries. So we did this. So it was not a one size fits all across all countries. We again went into a kind of a regional decision making process. So US was the first office which went into optional and then mandatory. Then Europe went into that, and then our operations in India and Asia went into that as part of the third phase. Um, so I think in terms of enabling collaboration and enabling our people to continue working, what we did was this. Like I said, as a company, given that we are completely SaaS based, pretty much every one of the employees that are there in the business have laptops, as compared to some other companies where you may have a rich mix of laptops and desktops. Laptops are easy to take home and start continuing working. Desktops are not that easy, right? Especially when you get a notification on Friday that starting Monday you have to work from home. There is a little bit of logistics involved in taking your desktop home, unlike a laptop. So that was one thing which enabled us to rapidly move into this. So we are a 100% laptop-based company. Two, we are a 100% SaaS only product setup. What was one thing which we did not anticipate was the public network infrastructure, especially in some of the developing countries, was not equipped to handle the huge spike in people working from home. The infrastructure there was set up where it supported people working from a corporate office, where the internet connection from there was reliable, but the quality of the connection from their home network was not as reliable. So remember, I talked about the optional work from home. When we did that in India, what we figured was we need to give a secondary internet connection to our employees. So we actually went and bought around 1,500 internet dongles, 4G dongles from various network providers, and then issued these out to our employees. So if the employee's primary network connection is not reliable, they will still have maybe a slightly slower speed, but they will have a network connection using which they can continue doing their job. And we did this for two reasons. One is business operations needs to continue, but also customer and customer service and the entire customer operations needs to also continue, because we did not want to have any drop in our SLAs to our customers. We did not want any features that we were planning to deploy to not go to our customers. So these are a few of the things that we did, Nicki, to enable us to work from home.
So it seems too, Prasad, you were so prepared, but although you're prepared and you're cloud native, were there any sort of expectations that changed from employees and also from yourself of employees during this time?
Yeah, see, I think the reality is this: all of us work from home a few days a month, or a few days in a quarter, or a few days in a year, right? Either you have a personal errand to run, or you have a doctor's appointment, or you need to take your kid to a performance. We do work from home from time to time, but this for people to now work 5 days a week, or sometimes 7 days a week, 30 days in a month, all working from home. This is not a model that many of us are used to.
Yeah.
So forget about the technology aspect. There is a culture aspect to this, right? There is an employee burnout aspect to this, because when you're working in the office, you leave your home, get into the car, go to the office, you put 100% focus on your work from 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., 6 p.m., whatever. And then you come back home, and then it's family time for you. The lines between family time and work time completely got smashed, right? Where there is no family time, there is no personal time. It's all one time now, because you get pinged multiple times during the day. In terms of collaboration, we deployed Slack as our collaboration mechanism for people to do instant conversations and so on. And we also have Zoom, which we used for people to do video conferences. So pretty much your work day became a longer work day, right? And plus the added complexity in our case is we have operations in multiple different countries. So we have stakeholders and users and colleagues who are actually in Europe or in India, and I'm here based in the US. So from a time zone perspective, there are only a certain number of overlapping time zones. So we had to deal with that. And I think that's where it gets back to the culture of the company. So that we went through an adjustment phase. The first 2-3 weeks, people thought this was a sprint. And if we all work really hard, and if we all put in the extra hours and work super hard, the COVID situation is going to go away. And this is not just Freshworks. This is what the world over thought.
Yeah.
Very soon after 2 weeks, people realized this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And this is now a new world. This is a new way of working for us. So we kind of recognized after the first couple of weeks. So we were doing employee pulse surveys, right? So we within Slack, we have the way of doing a quick rapid poll. We actually did sessions with our managers where we said, guys, one of the things we need to be careful about is we do not want employees to get burnt out. We do not want employees to think that they have to work 24 hours a day, because that's not what we expect from them. We want people to now have quiet time during which real work happens, and then you're going to have meeting time. So we changed and came up with what we call as meeting etiquette. We came up with kind of best practices tips, where we had managers first oriented towards that, and our learning and development team, along with my IT team, we worked with employees to say, how do you now set kind of time zones and working times within your calendar, within your Slack, as well as make it known to your to the stakeholders you're trying to reach you. So there was a combination of things that we did, and part of it comes back to the culture of the company. We are an extremely employee caring company, and then this is something that came from the top. We actually spent a lot of time as a leadership team saying, we are seeing a lot of people getting burnt out. We want to stop them from getting burnt out. What do we need to do to take care of that?
That's so key, and that's the human aspect, right? And it's funny. Every company right now, they're going through change, right? Change management is now being thrown on them, right? So they have to manage the change, and I think that's so key. As you focus on that human aspect and that cultural aspect, it then gives you more of a human response in terms of providing learning resources and such, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of learning, right? I want to touch upon one aspect. See, most of the learning, and we have used the term what learning on the job. And when we say we're learning on the job, you actually learn by watching somebody else doing it.
Mhm.
You actually learn by being in a room where you're hearing that particular concept being repeated a couple of times, and then that starts sinking into you. You learn by doing small things. All of this works great in an office setup where you're all in a conference room, you're going out for a coffee with a colleague, you're now collaborating with a colleague face to face. Think about it, all of this changes in a remote working environment, right? So this is where, from a learning and development perspective, a few things that we did was, one is obviously the learning and development team, they started engaging more and more with managers, because we feel that managers are key here as change agents, right? Where if we equip the managers and make them accountable to make sure that they make their employees learn the new techniques and learn the new ways of working, that's the way change is going to get propagated throughout the organization. But think about it: people don't have an opportunity now to go and stand in the coffee station and have a quick conversation with Dave or Nikki here, for example, right? We are doing it over a Zoom. So we came up with what we call as bite-sized, extremely small-sized teachable moments and learnable moments, right? Where we would take a particular topic and then send this out, either through our Slack channel or through Workplace or through the various mechanisms that we have for distributing the content. Get the feedback from people as to how much they learned from that, right? So we came up with, instead of 15-minute or 30-minute or 1 hour long training sessions, these would be like a short concept saying, hey, did you know that you could actually do this with Zoom? Did you know that you could actually do this with, if it was technology related? Our engineering team came up with a bite-sized thing that they sent to the engineers. Um, uh, from a tips and tricks on using the various products, we would say, did you know that you could actually do two steps in one stroke by doing this shortcut within your product? So these are things that which normally you would have learned by looking at your colleagues sitting next to you. You've lost that advantage now. And so we started doing that, because the reality is, since March to we are now in June, we have actually onboarded 200 employees. While many companies are in a hiring pause and hiring freeze, we have onboarded 200 employees. So we had to bring the new employees up to speed on Freshworks, the Freshworks culture, our ways of working, our technology, our products, our stack, our business process, etc. And all of that has been going on, Dave.
Yeah, and when I'm listening to you speak, and I think about your role as a CIO and a CISO, and I'm thinking of myself not only as an end user but also as an employee. Yeah, I never really thought myself fully integrated in the vision of what a CIO or a CISO has to say. And I'm saying that in full, just kind of off the cuff honesty. It was more about the chief marketing officer or the chief strategy officer. And so to hear that technology and security are all now being such more tightly knit into how people live their day-to-day lives and how companies are considering their digital transformation timeline is, I think, a very telling and interesting point in business transformation in general. So can you feel free to contradict me as well, but how do you see your overall role as being the CIO and CISO of your company evolving and changing, in the short term, so say over the next month or two, and then maybe for the next 2 to 5 years, given all that we've undergone?
Yeah, that's if you look at the reality that we are in, Nikki, um, like I mentioned before, the business model has changed overnight, right? So companies, and you brought up the whole thing about digital transformation. Almost every company in the planet now has some kind of a digital transformation initiative going on. But think about it: the business model that we are in since March is an overnight, dramatic, forced transition. And like the way our CEO Girish likes to call it, we used to operate out of 15 offices worldwide, but now we are operating from 30 to 100 offices worldwide, right? Because every single home has now become an office, right? Um, if you look at where the challenge is, and this is where my role as a CIO says slash CISO comes in, right? We used to spend a lot of time, a lot of money on securing corporate networks, on securing corporate assets. Investments, budgets would be managed and allocated based on, hey, I'm coming up with a new office. This office needs to have redundant blah blah blah. From a network perspective, it needs to have the fail safes to make sure that I'm taking care of the perimeter security, the endpoint security in the office, putting all the sniffing tools to make sure that there is no malicious objects that are getting in. But that dynamic has changed. Now, I cannot go into everybody's house, all the 3,200 employees of Freshworks. I can't go into their homes and change the way the network works, right? So this is where we're doing a combination of things. One is every one of the company issued laptops. We have the highest level of security products that are embedded there. The way we do onboarding and offboarding of employees, we have gone through changes in terms of given that we now have people that are starting remotely. And here I want to touch upon one more aspect, Nicki. With onboarding and offboarding, right? We did have a situation where employees, like I mentioned, we have onboarded 200 plus employees in the last 3 months. These employees sometimes could not be shipped a laptop. The shipping facilities in some countries completely stopped. So this is where the role of technology again comes in, right? And this is where my team we kind of brainstormed and said, what can we do to enable business continuity in this kind of scenario? What we did is we did a spin up of multiple VDI servers, which is virtual desktop servers, and created an image very similar to what our corporate issued laptop would look like. Mm-hmm. And then the employees who are joining who could not get one of our company issued laptops, they would use their own personal home machine, log into this VDI, and it would look very similar to them working on a company issued laptop. So I'm also taking care of security. I'm also taking care of employee productivity so that the employee gets what they need to continue doing their job, right? So, and this is a dynamic that's going to continue, right? Because like I said, we are in a forced transition, and pretty much most of the big companies out there have already announced saying that work from home is a new normal. Previously, people used to spend a lot of money and on real estate, where we would spend a lot of money on what we call as our corporate campus. Now the corporate campus is going to become more hubs of collaboration, mm-hmm. which is where now the type of technology investments that I would make in our corporate offices is to make them more collaboration hubs, where I create more meeting rooms and conference rooms for people to come in and collaborate, where people work from home. If they have a need to come into the office for a whiteboarding session, I enable them to come into the office and do that. Where the type of technology would be more not just the screen sharing, but whiteboarding, right? Where whiteboarding in one room can be seen from a remote location. So the type of technology demands now will also change. And what happens is, and you would have seen this over the years, technology always follows where there is a business need, right? When SOX came out, there were like 1,000 companies that started with coming out with SOX related products. When we saw the big data hype cycle, or when we saw the SaaS hype cycle, you see a whole bunch of companies kind of gravitating towards that area. We are seeing that happening now in the security area, because people now need to secure the access that employees have from their home, and figure out how do I now come up with a combination of things such as a zero trust model, where we should assume that everything is insecure, and then establish kind of trusted model. So if I know that Prasad always logs in from the East Bay in California, and you suddenly see Prasad logging in from, say, the East Coast, it is a suspicious activity. So here you start looking at other ways by which you need to implement security, right? So, and this is where the role of the CIO and the CISO is changing, where we need to adapt to what the changing world is. And one phrase which I use very often is, don't be a solution looking for a problem. Here we have a real problem. Let's define what does it mean for us from a security and a security readiness perspective, and let's start looking at solutions which will enable us to take care of what we need to take care of.
Absolutely, and as you're talking, it's funny. I'm seeing it. I was going to ask a question, on how the CIO role is evolving, and sort of this next generation CIO, and you're sort of a flagship example of where I see this role going as well too. For so long, IT has been sort of looked upon as separate from the business, right? When all along that's been a myth. It's IT, that role is actually part of the business, right? Because technology is a seam that weaves through the business. Every business process needs to be empowered and enabled, which at the heart of the process, the people, which need to be empowered and enabled. And so I love what you're saying here, again, focusing on that human piece and how to help people actually get their jobs done, right? And sort of bridging that gap, which was a myth in the first place of IT being separate from the business.
Yeah, and IT used to be referred to that as that IT as the ivory tower, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I've done presentations where I talk about the origin of the role of the CIO. There was no CIO till the mid 80s. The term itself did not exist. The IT department used to be called the data processing manager. It was that data processing department where you would send them reams and reams of data. They would bring this into a big mainframe computer and then bring out reports. Right. That so IT was totally distant from the business. But in this modern SaaS world, IT is completely embedded with the business, and CIOs need to know what business the company is in, and be embedded from a business process perspective, and be able to drive a business transformation by different functions to make sure that we are now moving the needle towards the right direction, right? Where it's a huge enabler in terms of technology, in terms of business productivity as well.
Absolutely. And so, Prasad, any final thoughts for our listeners? This has been a really interesting conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. So what I would say is, see, business transformation. Most people think that business transformation is a project. Unfortunately, it is not. Business transformation is a continuum. You go through different phases of transformation of your business. What we were doing 10 years back is different from what we are doing now. And it'll be completely different from what, about 5 years from now, it'll be completely different from what we're doing today, right? People need to understand that businesses change and the technology needs to support the business also change, right? COVID, if you really look at it, the whole Corona situation, it has accelerated and forced a digital transformation on many companies. Now, if people had the luxury of time, people would have taken a step back and done a more methodical implementation of some of the things that they would have put in place to address the situation. But in this case, they did not have the luxury of time. It was like an overnight thing. You literally had 24 hours, 48 hours to put your BCP actions in place. What I would urge a lot of people to do is urge CIOs and other leaders to do, which I'm doing, and when I speak to other CIOs, they are also doing, is take a look at what have you put in place. What are the lessons learned from this current action that you have taken over the last 3 months? There may be some things that you did phenomenally well on, but there I'm sure there are around 5 or 10 things that are opportunities for improvement. Learning always happens by looking for those quick opportunities for improvement. When, like they say, strike when the iron is still hot, right? When your memory is still fresh, jot down what these are and update your BCP plans, update your DR plans, update your the way you engage with the business to see what worked and what did not work. Because if you don't do that, it's a huge lost opportunity, right? The role of the CIO will continue to be critical. And to the point you were saying, Dave, it is not us versus them. It is the business and IT are so closely embedded together. So, and it is going to become even more critical in this new era, right? So I think there's a biblical term that says, "Thou shalt live in interesting times." I think it's so true in this kind of world that we are in today. So it's the best time to be in IT and information security.
Prasad, this is again another thought off the cuff, but going back to people, processing technology, and thinking of what you were just saying, I really believe that if you kind of blank out what you said in terms of technology, insert people, that, or like the person that you're with, or like personal relationships, that it could equally apply. Like taking a look back 10 years from now, what did we do wrong? How have things changed? Taking a look forward, what do we need to do to be more successful and work better together? And that, I think, speaks to the overall emergence of where these seemingly siloed areas of our lives and also of our work lives, which are increasingly coming together, really are colliding in interesting ways that we're also trying to figure out. So as you were speaking through that, I came to, I don't want to say it's epiphany, I don't want to give myself credit for that, but that's what it really seemed like. And Dave and I always like to end these I don't want to say interviews, but these sessions with thought leaders like yourself, is if we could, check back in with you in a couple of months to see where things are at, since things are escalating and changing so rapidly, we would definitely appreciate that opportunity.
Absolutely, Nikki. And I love, see, this is something I'm very passionate about, right? And what I
Clearly, I
believe,
love that.
We can tell. We can tell.
It's great.
Yeah, so absolutely. It's always wonderful talking to you and Dave. And we should definitely have a session in the next few months, because again, let's look at the learnings from where we are today and see what changes we need to make at that point of time.
Absolutely. This is by no means a frozen moment in time, for sure. So, thank you, Dave, for bringing Prasad to us. And thank you, Prasad, for your time. This is a great discussion, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, folks.
You too, Prasad. Thank you. You too, Prasad. Thank you.